So let me just quickly go through the intro slides. And I apologize. I know some of you had a difficult time with the technology. We're going to work that out for our next session of the book club. But this is our inaugural reading brought to you by the MBA, MSCS, and DBA program. So if you have any questions, feel free to put your questions in the chat or in the Teams room chat, or contact me at donna.dulo2@sofia.edu. So the goals of our book club are to have fun, to read books relevant to technology and leadership, to share insights with the Sofia community at large, and to learn from the books and each other, and of course, to have even more fun. So our format is every Wednesday, the fourth Wednesday of every month from 6 to 7:30 plus. It'll be very informal. It's not a classroom, but we're going to have a little bit of structure so that we can maintain solid discussions. And then after the initial set of books, we'll choose the books through collaboration and voting. And discussion methods, in the future can be chosen by members. So the format will occur in the Teams room. We're going to try to get the links out in a more efficient fashion to this Teams room. But also after the meeting, feel free to discuss the book even more in the Teams chat room, in the book club Teams room. And so everybody at Sofia is invited to participate. And if you don't want to participate, you can just sit back and observe. Even if you didn't read the book, you'll glean a lot of information, and then hopefully you'll be motivated to read the book after watching our discussions. So here are some future books. March, we're going to read the biography of Grace Hopper, who was considered the founder of computer science, and she also invented software. She invented the compiler, and she wrote the programming language COBOL, which is still one of the most widely used programming languages in the world. In April, we have a very special book that was literally just published, so it's fresh off the press. It's called Computational Leadership. And what's really special about this, it combines psychology, business, and computer science together to help leaders in technology. So it does have a very strong psychology background and discussions in the book. So this is basically all of Sofia is represented in this book. The May book is Tough and Competent. This is a very recent book, a 2023 book by Eugene Krantz, who was the mission control director at NASA during the Apollo missions. And his famous expression was, "Failure is not an option." This is his second book. He's still alive in his 90s. And this is a very good book that discusses technology and leadership in a very high stress, high performance environment. And then our last book that we have listed is The Algorithmic Leader. And this shows you how to be smart when machines are smarter than you. So it goes into the psychology of dealing with technology, artificial intelligence, and it teaches you how to become a leader in conjunction with rather than apart from the technology that you're using in your organization. So any questions from everybody who joined before we get started? Okay, so let's dive into our first book, The Worlds I See by Dr. Fei Li, who happens to be down the road at Stanford University. Her book was one of Barack Obama's recommended books on AI, and it was one of Financial Times' best books of 2023. And Wired magazine, which is a very influential magazine in technology, called her one of a tiny group of scientists, a group perhaps small enough to fit around the kitchen table, who are responsible for AI's recent remarkable advances. So this is some very, very hefty praise from her book. She's known to the world as the creator of ImageNet, which is an artificial intelligence platform that helps manage and gather data from images. Her career actually started here in the United States, but she was an immigrant, and she came to the United States and had absolutely no command of the English language. And her family came over. They actually lived in poverty, and she lifted herself up, taught herself English, and was admitted to Princeton University. She had a personal love of physics and mathematics. And over the years, this love of physics and mathematics helped her to create many things in the area of artificial intelligence. So currently, she is a professor of computer science at Stanford University and co-director of Stanford's Human-Centered AI Institute, which kind of correlates to what we do here at Sofia University. She was director of Stanford AI's lab for many years, and she also, during her sabbatical, served as chief scientist at Google. And she also is a board member or advisor on many public and private companies. She did her BA in Princeton University in 1999 and completed her PhD in electrical engineering from Caltech in 2005. And she also holds an honorary doctorate from Harvey Mudd College, which is an exceptionally great mathematical university. She is a role model for both children and adults alike, scientists, academians, everybody. She is an incredible role model. So without further ado, let's get started on our discussions. So the first discussion is, what are your initial thoughts and key takeaways from the book? So feel free just to jump in.
Thank you again, Donna, for being the inspiration behind gathering us together in this amazing set of books. But I was sharing that before we started, as we were just gathering and making sure the technology started, we study in the DBA program a lot about change and the arc of change. And I was so impressed in this book to her tirelessness, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other words to describe it, but even though she talked about the winter of when they were open sourcing all of those images to try and make, gosh, I hope I don't get it wrong here, her ImageNet, where she was collecting all the images, she was tireless about it. And my sense in her writing is she's so candid that she would have told us if she wanted to throw it in the nearest ocean. But I just was impressed with how long and then how quickly change takes place as a business algorithm as well. Plus, she's a spiffy person.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she embraces change. And if you recall what Charles Darwin said about change, it's not the strongest, it's not the most fittest. The species that's going to survive is one that's most adaptable to change. And she fits that very well. She can accommodate change. And actually, I think she thrives on and looks forward to change, because in order to change the world, you actually have to initiate change. And I think she really has contributed significantly because of her tirelessness and her persistence in the area of AI. Anybody else?
I think for me, I enjoyed the various aspects that she relayed in her life and what she was going through. It wasn't, all tech. It was her role as a healthcare provider for her mom and support for her dad, her relationships with her parents, and then, the relationship with the teacher that influences her, and what an ode to our profession, right? The experiences of, being an immigrant and relaying that experience, as well as her, just her falling in love and finding her passion. with physics,
Mhm.
and turning that into how she wanted to live her life with the passion that she does, and not backing down from that.
No, no, absolutely. Like we discussed earlier, she did an interview back in November, and she consistently thanked so many people who helped her along the way. And I just think it's because she's such a wonderful person. She had such a wonderful vision. People couldn't help but to support her because they knew her intentions were good and her intentions would change the world.
Agreed. And she did. Just that, like, for me, even what little I actually know about AI, but I mean, I've read a lot and practicing with it and all of that, but the connection between going from text to visual and the connection in the brain and how we learn, I was like, oh, I get it now why it took off, like
Yeah.
this time around. So what it's now I can see what it's going to take to bring it forward. So I
Mhm.
learned that from her too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else?
I don't know, Donna, if you can see, we've got Dale and Dinah. Am I saying your name
Dina.
correctly, Dinah? Dina?
Yes, this is correct. So how are you?
Good. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us for this informative session. So, unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to read this book, but I would love to learn more about this book because I have another book in my hand, and I would love to introduce this book with you all as well. If you have any opportunity to read this book, that would be great because I know the mentor of the book, so I can share it with you guys, with you ladies. I think this is another great part of the book that we can learn more about the humanity and the trinity of the human being. Uh, and I think this is kind of the similar content that you are kind of introducing into this session.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, at the end of the presentation, we can talk about your book.
Of course, sure.
And we can
Add it to
also
the chat.
add it
Yeah.
to add it
Yeah,
to the chat,
I
and
can.
then
Yes, I can share in the chat box. And if you like, I can invite this other to our sessions so she can talk about her book as well.
Yeah.
that would be awesome. Do we have some more people coming in?
It looks like it.
Awesome. So let's move on to discussion question number 2.
Oh, I was also just going to mention
Oh,
that
sure.
Yes, go ahead, Dale.
I also haven't read the book yet, so that's why I have no comments of my reaction to it. Although I did watch a few videos of Fei, and it interested me in watching the videos. Number one, her whole story of not only being an immigrant, but of how her educational journey happened, where she was really mentored by a high school math teacher, which really made the critical difference, and how deeply appreciative she was for not only him, but for the other people in her life who helped her in this incredible journey of coming into a new country where you can't even speak the language, and develop such a high level of academic excellence. She also was supported by a number of grants, so she could go to these advanced institutions of higher learning where her parents really couldn't afford to support that. So that's another incredible example, both of immigration and valuing this country for what it provides, and the generosity of a lot of people and the excellence of institutions to support exceptional talent going through. And the result being is that she's one of the key innovators in this amazing field of AI. So that was an incredibly impressive story, which hasn't been widely known. The other thing that really stood out for me was that when this book is co-authored with another person who speaks fluent English. But when they got through with the first draft of the book and they sent it to the publisher, an advisor of hers encouraged her to go back and rewrite it more as a personal story than rather just as a professional one. And I think that really lends to the power and impact of this book in terms of her being a role model for immigrants and people who are women in technology, and her saga, because when she went through this whole process, she was like literally the only one who was a woman in these higher institutions, and she's still quite of a rarity, but she really managed to navigate it, the journey, with a lot of grace, which you can pick up from the videos of her. And I think the one that you were mentioning is the one where she stands up and honors all the people who have helped her, which was quite extensive, but also quite impressive as to who she is as a person. So that's what really impressed me about it.
Thank you, Dale, for that. That's very, very insightful. Yeah, and that really inspired me too, reading her book. Just her challenges that she had to face, the obstacles she had to overcome to get where, Princeton and Caltech are not easy universities, and to be able to graduate still with a limited, knowledge of English is absolutely amazing to me. Okay, so discussion 2. So Dr. Lee has been called the godmother of AI, just like Grace Hopper is called the godmother of computer science. So from this reading, and we've already kind of talked about this, what has she done to earn this title?
So I think, again, her recognizing the images was going to take AI a leap, make it leap forward. And then the work with the healthcare that, the guy that she partners with in healthcare, I think is also another place where she's working on making it leap forward. Also, the lab, of course, is another place that adds to her, dominating the AI field at this juncture, or to Mary Kay's point, in this winter and summer cycle that AI keeps going through.
Right. Yeah, because I remember one of the winters of AI in the 80s and early 90s where AI just stopped.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons was because material science hadn't caught up yet. Because in order to process, we need fast processors. But we were still in the early 90s, still at the 286, 386, barely the 486. We hadn't even reached, the Pentium and beyond. So our chips just could not compute the algorithms. They just weren't fast enough. But as our computational power increases and also our storage capabilities increase, that enabled AI to regain its steam, because now you could write algorithms that could be processed and with large amount of data that could be called upon. So winters in various areas of technology, they can end the technology, or they can just like hibernate the technology until supporting technologies actually come into play. Anything else with discussion 2?
And I love her being called the godmother. I get this sense from her book, and then Dale, you and I probably crossed over and listened to the same videos. Her mentoring and support of students is just equally tireless. I mean, the passing on of the legacy seems to be so essential and important to her. And, that's certainly that's going to spur, I'm sure, this learning. The other thing that I was really struck with is her mom and her relationship to her parents. I don't know, Dawn, if it fits in the godmother, but I love, it's on page 244. I went through and I clipped, you can see all my pages clipped. So I loved it on page 244 when her mother said to her after a bout of another hospitalization, she asked this question, Fifi, what else can AI do to help people? And I just thought her ability to listen deeply and to be curious, as you said, Donna, just really spurs this godmother, this broad godmother concept of, everything's of interest. Everything contributes. How do we make
Right. No, that's amazing. Because I feel you can get inspiration for technology from the smallest places. Find a human need, and then figure out a technology that can help that need. And that's what I like about Sofia University is we're always looking, to help people with our solutions, not just to, create a technology that's going to make you $1 million. We want to move humanity forward, as our motto is, and I think she actually follows our motto with her inventions.
And her intentions, right? Her
Yes,
intentions
yes, absolutely.
for her family, for her students. To your point, Mary Kay, I would have loved to have her for a teacher at some point,
Mhm.
right? And then the almost carrying on the legacy of the teacher that inspired her, right?
that's a good
She
point.
carries him forward too.
Absolutely. Okay, question number 3. Dr. Lee wants AI to care for humans. She also wants humanity to build human-centric, benevolent machines that are going to help us as humans in our daily lives and in our health. So what are your thoughts on this, and how can Sofia, as a university, contribute to benevolent AI? Like the motto of the computer science department is moving humanity forward one line of code at a time.
Oh, very cool.
Um, but of course, Sophia's motto is moving humanity forward. So how can our university contribute to benevolent AI that will help, not hurt individuals?
I think that the transpersonal focus is the key there, right? Because the whole human focus at the center of AI is really what she's, as I read it, is what she's looking for, is not ever taking the human out of artificial intelligence and machine learning and, all of the new technology, or I shouldn't say new, but as all of the technologies evolve, to always put, the humans first.
Mhm.
And that's not
Absolutely.
necessarily everybody's focus, but I like that she is pushing that.
Absolutely. I also like how she deeply cares for people in general, and how that loving, caring, she's very transpersonal. She just didn't use obviously the term in her book, but she is extremely transpersonal, and I think that reflects on her success.
Mm-hmm.
I think too that there's a pragmatism in her approach that I think Sophia often has as well. It's like it's to your point about what moves us forward, but what moves us forward in a meaningful and practical way, working together for best ideas. And I'm watching, and we have really small numbers, but I'm watching the DBA students come in, both Chinese and the domestic applicants, and there's really a hunger to do something that benefits society. To your point, Donna, instead of, I'm sure that somebody's going to make a lot of money somewhere, but that's not the entry. That's not the projects aren't asking that. They're really asking to impact healthcare, impact the health of children, using elements of software development to share medical records, for example, for children and their families. So I think it's almost a sense of ethics or values that guide her and flow out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Agreed. Well said.
Okay, let's look at our discussion number 4. Okay, so she authored and published a paper with a co-author entitled Illuminating the Dark Spaces of Healthcare with Ambient Intelligence, and she reflected on this in her book. Now, ambient intelligence is a term used in computing to refer to electronic computer-based environments that are sensitive and responsive to the presence of people. So what are your thoughts about AI ambient intelligence in elder care and other healthcare areas that she presents in her book? Because I actually personally think, because I took care of my mother with Alzheimer's for 12 years, and I was in the nursing home for half of that with her. And I can see elderly people being afraid of, say, a robot coming in, or even an unfamiliar person, or if they bring in, a care animal. Things that are different tend to scare the elderly. So, what my goal would be, how do you soften that artificial intelligence or that robot or that machine so that people wouldn't be, like, say, afraid of it?
Yeah, and even on the care side, as she's talking about it in the book with the hand washing thing,
Mhm.
right? The example she gives of hand washing, and I remember hearing about that at the time that it became apparent that that was an issue, and being able to help in those ways that we're all moving so fast,
Mhm.
healthcare or not, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
especially in healthcare where, people's lives depend on it, how can we use AI in an intelligent way to help us care for each other better?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how would you all feel if you were sick in bed and a robot came in and wanted to, change your clothes, give you a bath, feed you? How would you feel about that? Would you feel that's too impersonal? Or would you embrace it?
I think that's such a powerful question, Donna. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is I'm not sure the robot would have the ability to build relationships. So where else in my service, environment might I get the care and community and connection? If it was elsewhere, I would say, great, change my sheets, dress me.
Mhm.
If I could then go out and be in community with relationships. So I think that relationship might be a question. That's interesting.
That's an
There's
interesting perspective of, from the question.
Mhm.
actually there's a movie about this that came out in the early 2000s. It's called, I think, Frank and Me or Frank and I. It's about an old gentleman who went into the nursing home and they paired him with a robot. And it just goes over his relationship with this care robot and how he liked them, he didn't like them, how he fought with them, how he wanted to get rid of them, how he couldn't live without them. It was a very, very good movie, and I think it's called Frank and Me. Um, but that's what came up when I saw this. You know, am I going to be afraid, or will I embrace, or will I want a combination? I want a human touch, as well.
Yeah, I don't think I could go total robot world. you know, like I would need
Yeah.
human interaction and people to be in community with, and my dog, and who's jumping in my lap right now. But the idea of having a robot, you know, service in that environment, also having dealt with a mom with Alzheimer's, like in that situation, I can see the fear aspect of it, but I can also see that that might also be very calming because it's not somebody's emotions that they're dealing with. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Does.
So there might be,
Absolutely.
you know, a way to use the technology in situations to help.
Dale, you look like you were going to say something.
No,
I thought I saw your frame light up.
no, nothing.
Okay. Well, let's go to our final discussion. Discussion 5. How can we at Sofia University help move humanity forward through combining AI, organizational leadership, and transpersonal philosophy and psychology in the spirit of Dr. Lee? Because we do have our 3 programs: psychology, business, and computer science. And how can we combine them to make the world a better place?
All of a sudden, Donna, I just had this wild thought about, oh, good, another certificate or concentration. And then I was like, oh, bite your tongue, bite your tongue. But I think it's good.
That's
really
an interesting thought. Like, could we create a certificate that combines all of those? So for those who are going out into
AI.
going out into the AI world, which of course is the hot place to want to go right now, with that transpersonal and leadership and into that field, inspire that ethic and value system into AI.
Yeah, because I think her vision and her manifestation of AI that she presents to the world is transpersonal. It's very transpersonal, and it falls in the spirit of transpersonal philosophy. She just doesn't use our terminology.
Dale, do you have any ideas?
Well, you know, I think it's still very, very early in our relationship with AI, but clearly it's going to be incredibly transformative. But I think for me, it seems like it's going to be transformative in a similar way to the way that electricity has been transformative, or that the internet has been transformative. That we're dealing with a systems level, massive impact of everything. Eventually, it's going to be so integrated. To actually a large extent, it already is pretty integrated in our lives, even though we're not aware of it. But it's going to be much, much more pervasive, and in a very short time, maybe 4, 5, 6 years. And I think some of the issues that we can help deal with or address have to do with the impact on people's lives and well-being, and the way we relate and structure and create our organizations, because all of that's going to be changing dramatically as well. So the issue of dealing with change and fundamental, really basic change, like you were talking before about the nature of relationships, the nature of trust, the nature of human contact. Those are all going to be profoundly affected and impacted. And there's going to be a need for people to help address those issues in a profoundly human and effective way on a massive scale. So in terms of, developing programs or contributing to humanity's evolution, that would be one area I would see as a potential rich area for places like Sofia to begin to address.
Mm-hmm.
The other area that's really very hot in business right now is how do these technologies apply in transforming business and organizations, which again is like massive everywhere all at once. And it's hard because people don't have a strategy or a framework to use. So even when you define what is AI and how does it show up, how does it impact, how does it add value, how do you deal with it, how do you implement it, how do you deal with the fallout of it in terms of employment, in terms of what work is, what it looks like. These are all massive social changes that are going to be occurring. And I'm not really sure how we address that, but it's pretty clear that we're going to have to address it as a society in a pretty major way pretty quickly. And to me, that's similar with kind of like, how do you deal with a tsunami of change, similar perhaps in extent to dealing with the COVID epidemic, where it's everywhere all at once affecting everything. And, how do you marshal resources to deal with that in an effective way? I think it's kind of a minor miracle that we came out of COVID as well as we did, even despite the huge human cost and suffering involved. But it's a miracle of modern technology and social adaptation that we're on the other side of it, relatively unscathed. So to me, that's quite remarkable. So I see AI in kind of similar terms to that, like it's going to be a massive cultural shift and adaptation in a very short period of time. And there's going to be a lot we're going to have to deal with in terms of challenges. And also on the other end, enormous opportunities when this technology gets applied. Like, I'm hopeful that it can be applied positively in dealing with things like climate change, which are absolutely essential, in dealing with things like feeding people and providing education that's far more effective than what we have now. So I think the systems level upside is enormous, especially in things like health care research and well-being and education. So I'm very excited about its potential as well. So anyway, that's my take on the impact of AI.
Oh, that's wonderful, Dale. Thank you. Anybody else?
one of the things I thought about coming out of reading her book was us not losing that community aspect of our humanity because of AI, and partially because of her focus on, human-centric AI, but also as she's talking about like the healthcare work that she's doing, and she's talking about Google and all the different aspects of AI, like, is it possible? I mean, I imagine it's possible, but how can we avoid that? How can we avoid losing community with AI? You look at the social media technologies, and that's one of the big things that I see is that individual experience has gotten really heightened through the use of social media. And I imagine with AI that could be exacerbated. And how do we avoid that? How do we continue to, remain human-centric for ourselves, as a whole?
That may be one of our
AI.
greatest challenges with AI is keeping ourselves grounded as AI takes over many of our areas and businesses and organizations. That's a very good point. Anybody else?
When I was flying back this weekend from Costa Mesa, I was sitting next to this gentleman who was on a cyber visa. And
wow.
in Japan. So he was allotted a special visa to work over there, and all he had was his phone. And I noticed it was tied to his wrist.
Oh my
Because
goodness.
it was his, it was,
Lifeline.
yeah, and that's where his work. But I was asking him in his, he said he had very high clearance, and I don't know that world, but it seemed like, I said to him, so when do you think we'll really, those of us who aren't in cybersecurity, for example, when will we feel the impact of this? Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? And he said, you're going to feel the Dale to your term, the tsunami in 2 to 3 years. And how we're grounded, how we're talking, continue to talk and create solutions together will be the key. Because he said in his world, he's having every day is, a new attack or a new, break in the armor, or whatever language is most appropriate. So I just, to your point, Simone, it just seems to me that where Sofia's gifts lie is in this convening community circles, your book group that you've started, Donna. This is a, petri dish for us to come together and ponder together. And I think that these are essential. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, one last thought, Dr. Lee left us with the thought that ethics is going to be really important.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's another opportunity for us to explore.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she has a, view that maybe not everybody in the field has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true.
I'd like to see her view win the day, ultimately for humans to, there's a saying of not taking the human out of the loop, and as long as we don't do that, I think we can avoid that, separation in situation.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And any final thoughts about
Donna, I'm curious, this is your world. What shifted for, is it okay to ask you or maybe ask it of everyone, what shifted for you personally in reading this?
I was just very happy that somebody who's a world leader in AI is taking the humanitarian side very seriously. Because I see a lot of technology as being cold, as being cutthroat in the industry. And it was just refreshing to me to see somebody who wanted to help people with technology instead of helping themselves with technology.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you.
I think she inspired me in a couple of ways. One was connecting the dots of why AI took the turn that it did. That really, she just brought it into focus for me, and now I understand why it took off the way it did in the last year and stuff, and why it's going through the iterations it's going through right now. So that's helped me to, be able to explain it and talk about it and process it. I think also just her strength and grace, character, ethics, the person that she is as she carries herself through her life was inspiring as well. Just amazing, obviously amazingly bright, and intelligent. And so down to earth at the same time. I just had this kind of visual of her being up and centered and grounded and very transpersonal, to your point, Donna. She doesn't use the language, but somehow she's learned the transpersonal way. And then the ode to her teacher was very endearing.
Absolutely. And it shows how one teacher can make a difference.
Exactly.
In somebody. And well, I mean, this teacher made a difference in the world by supporting her work.
Yes.
And I think that was just absolutely amazing.
Exactly.
And I love this story, or one of the videos that I watched today on her. His grandchildren were at the door of a bookstore holding up her book. And so that legacy continues.
Oh,
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is awesome.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, it really it transcends the boundaries that are so prominent right now, right, in our discourse going on day to day. You know, his grandchildren, so that's 3 generations that, you know, she's influenced and have influenced her as well and her family, and
Hmm.
it's really cool.
I think it's wonderful.
Any
Anything
final thoughts?
else?
I want to say thanks for recommending the book. I really, really loved it. It's one of my top books. I'm like, here, you need this book. Here, you need this book. You know, what I tend to do when I come across a great book.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when I found this by accident. You know, because I go to Barnes and Nobles and I just go in and I just grab new things, and I grabbed her book.
Like any good
About
bookworm
2 months
does.
ago. Yep. And once I started reading it, I just read it straight through because I couldn't put it down.
Yep,
And it's
me
absolutely,
too.
and actually her book was the inspiration for this book club, because I wanted to start sharing these really, really great books with the entire Sofia community.
Mm.
Well,
that's,
I'm looking forward to the next one. What were you saying, Dale?
yeah, no, well, that's great. I appreciate that. And I appreciated watching some of the videos of her. So that was very, very good to get familiar with what she was about and who she is. So thank
Oh,
you.
absolutely.
For,
Oh, no.
yeah.
No, my
I'm
pleasure.
curious as to why you selected that particular book.
Hmm. Yeah,
Hey, Donna,
very inspirational.
we should write her a note that says you were the catalyst for Donna kicking off our book group.
I should. You know what?
Yeah.
Let's
I would
get a little
appreciate
note
that.
together. We can email her because her email is on her
She's a very
Stanford page.
humane kind of person, very humble.
Yeah.
Would love that.
Very humble. Okay, so our next meeting is March 27th, which is a Wednesday, starting at 6 p.m. And our book is a book about Grace Hopper. Grace Hopper literally is another giant, a giant from the 1940s and 1950s in computer science. She invented the concept of software, and she invented the compiler to create software. She wrote one of the most widely used, even to this day, programming languages, COBOL. She has honors all around the world. She has a Navy ship named after her. She has institutions named after her, and she truly is a giant in the field of computer science. And it wasn't that easy because she went to Yale University to study mathematics, and she was the only female in her class, and she had to deal with a lot of discrimination and all of that negativity that women dealt with in the sciences back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s. So Grace Hopper is the subject of our next book club meeting. The book is from 2012, but of course, you know, she passed away in the very early 90s. So it covers her entire life. It covers her personal struggles, but it also covers her great intelligence in developing the concept of software and telling the main players in the computing industry back in the 50s that, yeah, you're doing it wrong. Here's how we should be doing it. Otherwise, if she hadn't come around, we still have warehouse-sized computers where your hardware was fixed to solve a specific problem. With software, and speaking of change, that's what software is. The difference between hardware and software is software allows instantaneous change. in your computing direction, your algorithms, and in your data structures. So Grace Hopper, please join us again March 27th, and we will discuss Grace Hopper and her incredible contributions to the field of technology and leadership, because she was a great leader. Even to this day, she was the oldest Navy admiral in U.S. history.
Wow.
Very cool.